Today, honey, they broke the economy and us. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics, where my latest post covering finance and property news. Well, my latest stress reports show that more households are under financial pressure. See my recent live show when I dived into the detail. At the postcode level, there were a number of examples where around half of households' incomes were now servicing the mortgage or rent, and in some cases, even more. But one reason why stress has not turned to higher defaults so far is low unemployment, something which is reflected in many Western economies around the world. People can work more jobs or more hours or both, as recent ABS data shows. But the days of low unemployment are numbered based on recent labour force data. The Albanese Government has ramped up immigration to unprecedented heights, with around 500,000 net migrants arriving in 2022-23 financial year. And based on Friday's monthly arrivals and departure data from the ABS, immigration has continued to surge. This surge in net overseas migration, alongside Peter Costello's baby bonus kids hitting working age, has driven labour force growth to levels that Australia has never seen before, at roughly double the pre-pandemic level. And in turn, Australia needs to create around 35,000 jobs per month just to soak up all of the additional workers, assuming a stable participation rate. Roy Morgan's unofficial labour force survey showed that total employment grew by only 50,000 people in the year to September, meaning the number of unemployed surged by 362,000, up 2.1% over the year. And while this has yet to translate into the ABA's official labour force survey, it's only a matter of time before it does. The latest employment data from SEEK showed that Australian job ads continue to fall in September, and more worryingly, the record labour supply growth has driven the number of applicants per job well above pre-pandemic levels. The number of applications to jobs has historically been a strong leading indicator for Australia's unemployment rate. Thus, the ABS official unemployment rate will probably rise sharply into 2024. And to give us a clue, Tara Brooker posted this chart on Twitter, estimating that unemployment would look like this if jobs growth fell back to pre-COVID 5-year averages of around 22,000 a month, and if the current strong labour force growth continued. Australia's unemployment rate would surge to around 5.3% in a year's time. Considering latest data suggests migration may be going even higher, the Aussie labour market has a problem, warns Tarek. And in fact, on Friday, I'll be chatting with him about just this. The combination of soaring unemployment, slowing wage growth, higher interest rates and escalating rents will be disastrous for many Australians. In the meantime, Chris Joy from Coolabah Capital believes 1 in 5 borrowers are screwed, with data repayments exceeding their incomes. 13% of all borrowers have negative cash flow or cannot afford to make their debt repayments after living costs, including private health and school fees. This is up from a mere 3% of borrowers in 2022, he says. If the RBA were to lift its cash rate to 5.1% in line with peers, it judges that 17 to 18% of all borrowers would have negative cash flow. Whereas 13% of Aussie borrowers have negative cash flow, net of essential living expenses, this jumps to an incredible 49% of borrowers with high loan-to-income ratios and 32% of borrowers with high loan-to-value ratios. These borrowers are much more likely to struggle to meet their essential spending needs, the RBA said. In the RBA's sanguine words, there is also a smaller share of fixed-rate borrowers, less than 20%, who will roll off onto higher interest rates with much lower savings buffers equivalent to less than 3 months of scheduled mortgage payments. You can therefore spin this two ways. Either most borrowers are fine, or there are 1 in 5 who are screwed. In particular, the RBA assesses that 18% of fixed-rate borrowers will have negative cash flows once they roll to variable, assuming no more hikes, This is actually about 7% of borrowers if you use a narrow definition of essential expenses excluding private health and school fees. And this chart from the RBA's Financial Stability Review tells the tale. 13% of variable rate owner-occupied borrowers have essential spending and mortgage costs that exceed their income. Moreover, more than 40% of households have less than 3 months savings buffers. The fixed-rate mortgage reset has still further to run, which means that average mortgage repayments will continue to rise until the middle of 2024, even if the RBA keeps the cash rate on hold. But ultimately, the biggest risk for Australian households is not further interest rate hikes from the RBA, but the prospect of a substantial rise in unemployment as the economy softens amid record labour supply growth from immigration. And so, the critical policy question that the government needs to tackle is slowing migration. And yet, as I discussed with Edwin today, there is a need to import massive amounts of people to work in the construction sector to build property for those who are migrating into the country. It sounds like a negative feedback loop to me, and unfortunately, the government has been very, very distracted over the last few months with you-know-what, but maybe it's time for them to get back on the horse and try and tackle this massive issue. Migration needs to slow, and slow now, but the damage is probably already done for many households. I'm Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Many thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.